All right, hi. We wanted to thank everyone for all the encouragement and for all the questions you guys sent in. There was a lot of really nice and sweet comments and a ton of questions, so we're going to dive right into them.
All right, so I have compiled all of the questions, both from the YouTube channel and from Instagram and Facebook and our blog post, and I put them into 3 categories. So the first set of questions we're going to answer is stuff about our family and about us. And then the second set of questions is all the ones that were just about the bus and the bus conversion specifically. And then the last set of questions is more about what our plans are and what are some of our thoughts about what we're going to be doing going forward. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. So the first set of questions were all real similar. So Juan Viaggio, Ben, and X86 Cowboy all kind of asked about what you do, what your background is, where did you go to school, what did you get a degree in, and what you do for a job. So let's go ahead and start there.
All right, so I have a degree from Arizona State University in computer science. So I program computers. It's slightly more complicated than that, but that's essentially what I do. I did almost get a chemical engineering degree, and then my dad passed away, and I decided I don't want to be a chemical engineer. He really wanted me to be a chemical engineer. So before that, I was environmental engineering, and so I spent a lot of time at school. Not because I was getting a graduate degree, although I am 3 credits shy of a graduate degree, a master's in computer science, before I decided I have a kid now and I don't have time to do this anymore. So the short version of that is I have a degree in computer science, and I actually own a small software company, and I write software. So that's what we do for a living.
Okay, so then JC over on the blog asked how we're going to support ourselves while we're traveling.
Right, so this leads in really well to what we're going to do when we travel, because I own a small software company, and I've been working remotely for almost 10 years. So for 10 years, we've literally said, hey, we could work from anywhere. And when we had our last child, we decided to, well, it was during the summer, and it was like July, and Michelle was like, we need to get out of here. Like, I can't do this, because it was really hot like it is right now. And so we actually moved to California for about 5 weeks or so, and just to try it, just to say, we've always said we could live anywhere, and then we never do, so let's try it. And so we did. We packed up my laptop and a suitcase of clothes, and we went to California, and we loved it. We didn't miss any of our stuff, and work went well. It went fine, and so that's kind of what sort of started this whole thing. And then Michelle discovered a family, and just that people were doing this sort of traveling thing full time, and we've always wanted to travel. And so she had this big idea, hey, what if we sold everything we had and just lived in an RV? And this was 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and so the seed was kind of planted, and so we've been kind of pursuing that ever since. Alright, so basically the plan is I'm going to keep working while we're on the road. That's the short version of it. The slightly longer version is I'm going to be working part-time. So we've also sort of tried that, and I've been working part-time now for about the last 8 months, 9 months.
Something, yeah.
So I've been working part-time, and that means that I work basically 3 or 4 days a week, or usually 3 days a week, and then 4 of those days we're working on the bus or trying to figure things out, getting the house ready, things like that. So my plan is to continue doing that while we're on the road, and we'll see if it works. We've never done anything like that other than the California thing, where that worked really great, but we had great internet, and so we're in sort of the research phase now of trying to figure out all those little things, like what do we do if I can't connect, or can I just go to a coffee shop, or things like that. So anyway, but the plan is I'm going to keep working through this next transition.
All right, so Richard asked, what did I study in college? So I studied zoology. I also graduated from Arizona State. So my degree's in zoology. I have a minor in music. And pre-having kids, I was actually an animal trainer at a couple different zoos and wildlife parks. So I trained all the animals that are used for educational programs. I went to schools and did programs. I did shows at the parks. Just basically educating visitors about wildlife. So Andreas and Richard and Randy and Freddie all kind of asked about homeschooling and why we decided on homeschooling, and if that's something that we've already been doing, or if that's something that's going to be new. So actually, we've always homeschooled our kids. So our oldest is 13. None of our kids have ever been in a traditional public school or charter school or anything. We have always homeschooled them from the time, they were preschool, kindergarten age. So this won't be anything new, which is why we've kind of always said, well, we could pick up and live anywhere because he works from home, we homeschool the kids, we can just take this show on the road. So homeschooling won't really be anything new, but we do think it will look different when we're on the road, because the plan is that we're going to incorporate the places that we're going into what we're learning about. So
and that ties in really well with like American history, say. So a lot of that stuff is on the East Coast, and a lot of where our founding fathers and big memorial sites and war sites and things like that, most of that stuff is in like the New England area and Jamestown and things like that. So we're really looking forward to doing that kind of stuff as part of our kids' education, so they can see firsthand like how Washington D.C. works, or here's where our government meets and where laws are made and where they're passed, and here's where those people spend all their time. So
right. And so in terms of why we decided on homeschooling, we could have a whole nother video about that. That is a very in-depth conversation to have, but I'll just give you like shortened version of what I would tell someone on why we chose to homeschool initially. A huge part of it is that we want to be able to tailor our kids' education to each one of them. We don't believe that education should be one size fits all, and we know our kids best and their learning styles best, and we love to give them the time and the opportunity to pursue interests. And so we do, all the traditional subjects, but we also allow them to really take the extra time to focus on the things that they're passionate about. We also want to keep our family tight-knit and really encourage those sibling bonds and parent-child bonds. And not to say you can't do that in a traditional school setting, because absolutely you can. We both were public school kids. We're both very close with our siblings and our families, and so that's not to say that you can't. But this is just really what works best for our family, and it just allows us a lot of freedom in our time and in the way that we educate them. So that is my condensed version, and if anybody really wants to talk more about that, you can feel free to email me and I can go into a little bit more detail about that. Okay, so here's a fun question. 72 plus hour Bob asked, what kind of motorcycle do you have? Because I'm sure they keep seeing it in the back of our garage.
Yeah, it's been in the back of a lot of the videos have had my bike in the back. All right, so my current bike is a 1995 Bimoda SB6, which is this crazy handmade Italian bike. I've been riding bikes since I was 15, and for a long time, that's like all through college, I didn't have a car. I only had a motorcycle. So when it was hot, like it is here in Phoenix, I sweated a ton. When it was raining, I got wet. So I had a motorcycle for a very long time, and for a long time that was like a real core part of my identity. And then I had 4 kids. So I haven't really ridden it in probably 4 or 5 years. And in fact, I'm in the process right now of getting it ready to try to sell, and it will be the first time since I was 15 that I haven't had a bike. So it's a little sad, but if we get to go adventure, I'm okay with it. So
Yep. Okay. So here's kind of some hard questions. So 1010 Bus asked, how do you and the family take a step back from the bus to recharge? And Timothy over on Facebook asked, how do we stay motivated to work on the bus and find time with a growing family to keep working on it? So honestly, we're not great at this. We're not great at taking a step back. And here's the funny part. We've joked about this, that the days that he goes back to working and we go back to like our normal homeschooling schedule during the week, like that almost feels like our break, and us recharging is just doing our normal life. And we joked the other day, like, what did we used to do on the weekends? Like, we don't even remember. Oh yeah, we used to go to Dominic's football games and baseball games, and we would have play dates and take the girls to gymnastics and all of those things. And gosh, like, that feels so long ago.
But we're grinders.
Yeah.
We definitely, like, Michelle is very task oriented, and I'm just kind of stubborn. So we are very much like, if there's something to get done, we are very much focused on it. Just doesn't feel right until it's done. And we've had times where, when we first started this, we thought, hey, it'll just be a little renovation and then we'll be well on our way. And now, a year and a half later, we're still grinding on this thing. And there have been times where we're like, oh my gosh, should we just give it up and just go buy an RV and let's get out of here? And every time we're like, no, we should finish what we started. It's kind of like when I was getting my degree and I'm 7 years in and I'm like, I already have a job and everything, and I'm like, no, I need to finish. So, and then I just got my black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that took me 10 years. And so I guess that's the pattern of our life. We're grinders. So
yeah, but we do. I mean, even on our days when we're working on the bus, we stop at dinner time. We have family dinners every night. We play games with our kids and read to our kids every night. So we're still kind of keeping the same routine. Just it is hard. I mean, we're just not going to lie. It's hard. It's exhausting. And our motivation is that we just want to be done. We just want to get out of here. We watch a lot of YouTube families that are recording their travels, and that keeps us motivated because we see all these amazing places that they're going with their families. And our kids keep us motivated because they are just as on board with this as we are, maybe more so. Like, they want to go so badly, so they keep us motivated. And so finding the time, obviously, we just split our time. Half of the week we're doing our normal work in school, and half the week we're working on the bus, and we're just doing our best.
Yeah, and the one thing we did cut back on is work. Like I said, I went to part-time work, and that has helped tremendously.
Huge.
So that is the one part where we did cut back. So
all right, so Kevin, we're going to give you the award for our favorite question that came in, and that was, did our traveling experiences as kids inspire this project? Right. And I would say definitely yes. I mean, that was a big part of it. Both the traveling that we did get to do, and then traveling that we haven't done yet and that we want to do. So my dad was a pilot in the Air Force, and so we moved around some when I was a kid. But my parents, even before my sister and I were born, they lived overseas, and they had seen a lot of the world through military, through Air Force life. And
travel a lot.
Yeah, and my parents travel a lot. So they definitely instilled that love of traveling in me, and so we would take a lot of vacations as a kid, a lot of road trip type vacations. When I was 14, we went to Europe and spent a month in Europe, visiting family and then just seeing the continent. And so yeah, I would absolutely say that family road trips and family traveling and just seeing my parents and their love of travel and the stories that they would come home with, and the pictures that they have definitely inspired me to want to give that to our kids. And then you had some awesome family travel as a kid.
Yeah, so funny enough, my dad actually built a school bus when we were growing up. I was maybe 12 or 13, and my dad could build anything. So we built garages, and we built cars, and a bus.
Oh, they had an ostrich ranch.
Oh, and we had
they built the whole ostrich ranch. They built all kinds of crazy stuff.
Anyway, and we did travel quite a bit, not in that bus. We only traveled a couple times in that bus, and it caught on fire one time. So that bus we didn't, but we did, my dad did one summer, I can remember, and this was like one of my best memories from growing up, is one summer we bought this it was a 70s Dodge Class C motorhome, and he had bought this two-person sailboat that he made a rack for on top of, and a tube for the sail. And we went all over Mexico. So we went down into Mexico and just went down the coast, and when it was time to sleep, we would pull over and sleep or stay in a park, and it was amazing. Just things just off the beaten path. Beaches with literally nobody on them. There was beaches that were so full of jellyfish that you couldn't even see the water. It was just jellyfish everywhere. And it was amazing. That was one of the most amazing trips I remember as a kid. I think it was 2 weeks we spent going all the way down one side and then across and then up the other side. And it was one of those times where it was just like we didn't have a real plan, and there was plenty of trouble to be had, and it was really fun, and that was one of the times that I think back to and think that, wow, I'd really love for my kids to experience something like that.
Okay, so moving on to questions about the bus. Rob Psycho and Mike and Christopher on our blog all kind of asked similar questions. Why did we get an old bus rather than kind of a pre-made RV? And then Christopher asked specifically, why did we get a 4106 rather than some other bus?
Right. So that's kind of a funny question, because when we started this whole thing, Michelle had found someone who they were traveling in this very large toy hauler.
Was this like a Super C?
A Super C toy.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't
it was
a pull
amazing.
behind.
So we were very convinced that that's what we're going to get.
Yep.
We're going to get that Super C. And we looked, and they only made that particular model for, I think, 2 years or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And we basically couldn't find one. And they were really expensive.
Oh, they're so expensive.
I think a used one
huge.
was $120,000. But
anyway, it was like a 42-foot.
Oh, it was enormous.
Huge
It was
beast.
huge.
Yeah.
So then, as we got into doing more research and more research and more research, what we had discovered from watching people on YouTube and from seeing different families and blogs and Instagram and things like that is that we'd like to spend a significant amount of time in state and national parks. And so then we got to go in that direction, and then figured out that they don't allow 40-foot, 42-foot RVs in a lot of those. It's some of those can be very difficult to get into, even with a 30-foot one. And so they were built long ago when 25, 27 feet was how long RVs were, or recreational vehicles. And so as we did more and more research, we landed on the magic number of 35. So we wanted an RV that was 35 feet long, because then it wasn't so long that that you couldn't get in. Like, you could still get into a very large amount of national parks, but it wasn't so short that there's 6 of us. So there's a lot of us. And so 35 feet was kind of the magic number that we landed on, and then we started looking for RVs and trailers, and for a while we were convinced we're going to get a fifth wheel, and we still think that's a great way to go. There's plenty of people who make it work with a fifth wheel, and they're pretty awesome, but we didn't want to all cram into a truck. So there was always like this pros, and we had a whole list of okay, this is a pro for this is a con for this is a pro for that, and so we made a big list, and we actually went RV shopping. We went to a few RV shows and saw a few RVs locally that we just went and checked out, and we just didn't love any of them. And so it was funny because when we decided to go 35 feet, it basically like narrowed down the number of RVs we could use, and then we got on this bus kick. So we saw people that were converting these buses, and these old buses, I mean, they look so cool. So I was like, what, I think it may have even been Michelle that had the idea of like, hey, what if we did an old bus? And so we started looking around for that. And so 35 feet, when you own like a bus company, it's in your best interest to stick as many people in the bus as you can. So as the laws have allowed, buses have gotten longer and longer and longer. Now they're 45 feet, but back in the 60s, it turns out they were 35 feet. So when we went on this bus kick, 35 feet basically meant you have to get an older bus. So we started looking, and because we're going to live in this thing full time, we just wanted something that was made to sort of travel millions of miles, and it turns out buses fall into that category. They're built like tanks. Our 1964 bus, they ride on air suspension, and so it rides really well and drives really nicely. And
well, and we could put like big, huge tanks in it, whereas like most traditional RVs of that size have smaller tanks, which is harder for a big family. And we knew if we got a traditional RV, we'd probably still have to customize it somewhat to sleep 4 kids the way we would want to. And so we figured, well, shoot, if we're gonna have to modify something anyway, let's get a bus and give it a facelift. Well, we all know how that turned out. It's not a facelift anymore, but it just felt like the right fit for our family, and we're suckers for like cool vintage stuff, so that helped.
So as Michelle had said, we have big giant tanks, and we're putting on a very large solar system, and we have a substantial battery, and so our plan was to sort of optimize to live off-grid so that we could enjoy national parks. And out west, we live in Arizona, out west we have a ton of BLM land that we can use, and you just kind of go park somewhere and you can stay up to a couple weeks. So we'd love to take advantage of stuff like that and just kind of get outside a little bit. So with a bus that gave us the carrying capacity to be able to store a lot of water and a lot of electricity, and to travel relatively comfortably.
So why, though, did we specifically pick a 4106? We talked about, well, it's 35 feet. It's the vintage bus. It has all that. But there was another bus that we were also looking at, which was the MC5. Right. That's another one that would have been an option for us.
We also looked at older Ford Travels.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
We even considered a schoolie for a little bit. But the 4106 is kind of considered like the sports car of buses, as funny as that sounds. It's got a relatively large engine. It's got a big giant V8 diesel that has plenty of power. And the predecessor, which is the 4104, had a 6-cylinder, and it was a little weak as far as going up mountains and things like that. And so Michelle had pretty much insisted that we get an automatic.
Yep.
And so, which is fine. It makes driving it really easy. The one thing is, though, you do give up gas mileage for the automatic. So a lot of people in 4106s are claiming they get 9, 10, sometimes 11 miles to the gallon. And then when you throw in an automatic, you're pretty much going to get 6 or 7. So
That's okay.
That's fine.
That's
so,
all right.
yeah.
Okay, so Wayne asked if we're part of Bus Conversions International.
Yes,
Yep.
we are totally. We love that group, so we frequent that a lot. We actually went to Quartzsite last January and met a bunch of the people in that group, and we
So
just
nice.
the nicest people you could ever meet. And so we just walked away so encouraged from that visit, and people were just willing to show us how they did everything from tanks and water to electricity to anything. Literally, if it was, everyone was just open their bus and was like, hey, check out mine and see how I did everything, and it was an amazing visit. We loved it.
They're great people over at Bus Conversions International. So go to their Facebook group, and if you're interested at all in buses, just go find these people. They're awesome. Okay, and then Bruce asked, do we get Bus Conversion Magazine, which is kind of similar.
Yeah,
group,
yep, we did.
magazine.
We're subscribed to Bus Conversion Magazine, so we read it every month. So
Okay. Okay, so Christopher over on the blog asked if we have any concerns about taking the bus off-roading for boondocking.
yeah, we absolutely do, because it's big and heavy
Yes.
and it rides really low to the ground. So there are some concerns there about taking a big, giant, old bus off-road. We probably won't be doing much more severe than like a dirt road. And even some dirt roads are off limits. So there are concerns about taking it off-road. But
we'll be smart. We'll just be smart about where we go.
We'll be careful for sure.
Yeah, and we have... this is a question later, but we will have another car with us that we can scout places without the bus to see if it's safe for us to take the bus. But yeah, we'll just be safe. Okay, so several questions came in, of course, about the Nissan Leaf battery. So Christopher, again on the blog, asked why we chose specifically Leaf batteries over Tesla or Volt. And Oblio and Arrow asked why we picked electric vehicle batteries in the first place. So was it chemistry? Was it price? Was it, the ability to configure it?
Right.
So go for that.
Yeah, so it was all that stuff, to be perfectly honest. So we knew we wanted to go with lithium batteries because we'd been researching it for quite a while, and we just had decided, like, this is just the way to go as far as weight, just the ability to charge them and discharge them. There are tons of reasons to go lithium. We have a bunch of them listed in a blog post, but specifically the Leaf batteries, when I first started researching, it just seemed like the simplest battery because they're not water cooled. So we have Chevy Volt batteries are water cooled. The Tesla battery modules are also water cooled. Now you don't have to water cool them. There are plenty of people that run them just with the water jackets dry, and they do fine because the loads that we're putting on these batteries as house batteries are extremely mild compared to what they see in a car. So for example, for our Nissan Leaf battery, the battery is capable of putting out 90 kilowatts of power. And we have a 5 kilowatt inverter. So we're using about 5% of its rated capacity. So the nice thing about that is that should translate into much longer life. So it should translate into, if we can keep our demand relatively low, which 5 kilowatts is plenty for us in the bus and stuff like that, for us to do all our cooking and heating and air conditioning and all that stuff, we should be able to stay within the 5 kilowatts. But the Nissan Leaf is air cooled. It's much more configurable than the other ones. They come in little modules that are basically there's 4 cells in there that are 2 in series and 2 in parallel, and so they're easy to stack up. So when we first started, we thought we'd probably set up a 24 volt system. Just because our research had kind of led that it's a little more efficient and you can use smaller wires. Well, we ended up at a 48 volt system for those same reasons. It was plenty easy to get charge controllers and components and everything that all worked with 48 volts. and it just made more sense in our setup. If we're already going to do 24 volts, which means we can't charge off the engine and things like that, we may as well go 48 and then put even less strain on our battery. And so anyway, specifically the Nissan Leaf, yes, chemistry had some to do with it. They're all lithium. They're all going to last much, much longer, as well as way less than lead acid. We can charge them in a linear profile. They love just staying within, like, say, 80% to 60%. They'll pretty much last forever if you can keep them in that range. And with the amount of solar we have, we should be able to maintain that. We should be able to keep them kind of on that perfect path. And so we hope that they last a long time. And I just happened to find a Nissan Leaf pack. So if I had found a Chevy Volt pack, we might be having the same conversation of why I chose a Chevy Volt pack. So they're all great batteries. I've seen people build systems out of all of them and have great success with all of them. Of course, I mean, just with anything, it's a battery and you have to be careful. There was, when we had plenty of people on our channel saying, hey, you're going to end up killing yourself and stuff like that. And you know, and we were nervous. And so, but like anything, you have to be careful with it and you have to do your research. But we're really pretty happy with the Nissan Leaf battery.
Oh, and price, obviously. And
price. So
didn't
we got
hurt.
Right. So we got 24 kilowatt hours. For about $2,500 is what I think it was. Then it was, $150 to ship it, and then there was this $150 core charge, which I'm still kind of like, why would you charge me anyway? So it was $2,800 shipped to our house. So if we were to buy, say, like a Battleborn battery, that's going to be $24,000. So it was $2,800 versus $24,000. We're like, hey, we'll take the gamble and see if we can make it work. And so when we first started doing this, there wasn't a ton of people, and we weren't aware of a lot of people doing. Now there's groups. There's which is one of the questions on here, so I'll save that for that. But that's sort of the longer answer, I guess.
Okay, so Sev asked about this little small window AC unit that we have to cool off our battery bay, and how is all the condensation going to drain from that? Because
right.
it's like in that little bay.
Right, it's in that little bay. So that little AC is really cool. It's highly efficient.
Yeah.
So the way we arrived at an AC is kind of funny. I knew that the batteries needed some cooling. Almost everyone I've seen who's put in lithium batteries and the inverter and everything has had at least some issue with heat. And so we already knew from other people's experience that heat was going to be an issue. And so what I first started looking for was a fan, just a good size DC fan that would push air through that compartment and maybe even suck it out of the cab, so the main living area. There's actually like a sort of a tube or crawl space that connects the two. So I thought if I put a fan in there, I can blow air and it'll suck it in from the main living quarters, and it'll blow nice cool air in there, and then I just got to find a way to make an exit for it. So that fan and the associated circuitry was going to cost me about $150 to $200. Just because a good quality DC fan, they're expensive. And so I then was like, well, if I'm going to pay $150, how much is like a little tiny air conditioner? And I went and looked, and I found that little air conditioner at Best Buy, and the EER rating on it is really high. It's like 12 or 13, which is very efficient. So that thing runs at 2 to 4 amps, and it's a 5,000 BTU unit. So it's very efficient. And it fits in there quite well. And so the cool thing is, and it was
like
I think
$100,
I think it was like $120 or $150 or something. So it was just as much as that fan. But underneath, so that fan is mounted so that there's a wall, and then there's kind of the exhaust side on one side, and then the battery stuff on the other. On that exhaust side, there's a hole in the bottom where the condensation forms, and then it leaks. So then I have a plastic funnel with a screen in it that then it dumps into the plastic funnel, and then it'll funnel out. I'll try to get some picture. We don't have the bus here, But I think I have some pictures of how we built the little funnel thing underneath. So
it just drains out through the bottom onto the ground. Yeah.
So, yeah.
MacGyvering. Okay. And then how do we make sure that moisture stays out of the power bay?
Right. So the air conditioner should also have a secondary benefit of drying the air. So hopefully that keeps it nice and dry in there. We're in Arizona, so when it reaches like 30 degrees humidity, we're like, oh, it's so humid.
We're miserable.
So we're not used to humidity out here, so we don't worry about it out here. But hopefully, when we start traveling, we'll have that thing running, and it will be drying the air in that bay.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So then Jason asked, how well do we think our mini split inside is actually going to keep the bus cool?
Right, so we hope that mini split works really well, because it actually works really well already, and we don't have anything insulated or anything in there. So, of course, when it's like 113 degrees here, and the sun is just pounding on the bus, it's not going to be able to keep up with that. But
not while it's not insulated.
Right, while it's not insulated. So we're hoping as we travel that we have weather that's a fair bit more mild than that. So that's one of the plans, and we're still looking at options for how to cool the rear end of it. So like the bedroom part of it.
If it's hot and it's not working well to get all the way to the back bedroom, we'll get some supplementary fan. I mean, we do have a fan back there,
fans, but we may do another AC in the back,
portable AC
like a
or
small
something.
one.
So we'll see. Okay. Jason also asked, are we going to be able to run strictly off of our batteries and solar system and not have a generator?
Right.
That's the plan.
That is the plan, yes. We've read about plenty of people who have solar systems as large as ours and batteries smaller than ours who are like, I have a generator and have not used it in 6 months, 8 months, or we use it once a year. And so we figured if we're going to run into a situation like that, let's plan for a generator, meaning let's wire everything in so that if we need one, then we have everything is set to run one. But we actually don't plan on buying one until we need one, which I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. But if we do get one, it'll be a relatively small one anyway.
Right.
We have a 30 amp plug that we've wired in to our Quattro as the generator, and so we can just plug it into that, and it should not be a big deal. But we are hoping that we have just shy of 3,500 watts of solar and then 24 kilowatts of battery storage. We're hoping that that's enough to keep us non-generator using. So if that makes sense.
Right. Okay, so Christopher on the blog asked why we are not using spray foam insulation.
Right. So we did go back and forth on the spray foam insulation, and there were several things that kind of made us shy away from it. And one of them is the outgassing of it. So we've heard that it's really it has a chemical smell for quite a while. The other thing is that when that stuff cures, it generates a lot of heat, and it often will warp the aluminum shells or the metal shell of a bus. So that was sort of the two things that we were just kind allowed us to shy away from.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of people with bus conversions that say absolutely use spray foam. Like, that's what most people seem to use, and that's fine, but we're just trying a different route. The other thing is, another friend with a bus that we follow, he bought his bus, it already had spray foam. He lives somewhere where it's very cold, and he said the spray foam alone did not provide enough insulation. It did not, when it was 20 degrees where he lives, he could not get his bus above 50 degrees that was with his furnace running and everything, with the spray foam insulation. And in the heat, it was not doing a good enough job. And so we found Roxol, which is what we're using as our base insulation. It is it's like fire resistant up to like 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit. It's mold resistant and water resistant and all of that stuff. It's natural, it's made from wool, so we liked that. But we are probably coming up gonna do an additional layer of insulation with a product that we'll probably be talking about that has been mentioned and talked about in the bus conversion forum. So that's something that is to come. So I'm not going to mention a lot about it here right now, but we are probably going to do an additional very thin layer of a product that should hopefully kind of finish off our insulation needs. Okay, so Sev was asking a question about the little converter, the step-down converter from 12 to 6 volts for our door lock. That we have actually inset into our door, and if it wouldn't be better to move that converter inside into by where that little fuse panel is on the dash.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, the short answer is yes.
We might move it.
That probably is a better place for it, especially if those do go bad. They're buck converters. They're electric components. They will go bad eventually, so it probably is a good idea to move that, and we probably will move it.
But we actually are going to make the interior of our bus door, like the panel that's going to cover all that up, we are going to make that removable so that we can access all of our lock components in the future if we need to. So if we end up leaving it there, we'll still have access to it. He also wanted to know, Jace, based on the connectors and stuff he's seen you use, he thinks maybe you are an RC plane or car enthusiast.
Yeah, I
Yes.
did. I love to fly RC planes. I did for a long time. Me and my friend Henry got into it, and we did it for several years. And that's what's funny is that's how my understanding of lithium batteries came from that background, because the RC plane community was using lithium batteries way back in 2004, 2005, and they weren't these nice ones that we have now. They were the volatile ones that would catch on fire and like your plane would start on fire, and they were the crazy ones. So that's where I started learning about lithium. And yes, a lot of my connectors are basically old, leftover stuff from before I had kids, RC plane type days. So.
Yeah, before our garage shelves were filled with bus components, they were filled with RC plane components and pinball machine components, yes, and video like arcade game components, and motorcycle parts. That's what our garage used to look like. So yes. Okay, so 8 Cylinders to Life wants to know if we have a mock layout of what we're going to do on the interior, and will we show it prior to the actual interior build. So we have an idea. We absolutely know what our plan is. We don't have it like drawn up in SketchUp or anything yet.
We have a few pieces drawn up in SketchUp
bit,
because that's how we designed our tanks.
Plumbing.
So our plumbing and stuff like that. And so we have a little bit of it in SketchUp, but not a lot. So.
Right. So especially I like paper and pencil, so I like graph paper and pencil, and so we have some drawings like that, and I think maybe when we are ready to start the interior, maybe we'll do a video where we do kind of a walkthrough of what our plans are going to be. So yeah, I think that will probably be our plan, but we do have a pretty good idea. Not that things might not change, but we have a pretty good idea of what we're going to use. He also asked what type of kitchen appliances we're going to use.
Right.
So our plan is to use all electric. Yeah. Our refrigerator is an apartment-sized electric residential fridge. We're planning on having induction cooktop, and then we have an Instant Pot. What else? Oh, we're probably going to do a convection oven. So we're not going to, our goal was originally to have no propane at all on the bus, but I think our water heater, we're going to have to go propane, but that's going to be it. All of our kitchen stuff is going to be electric, and then we'll probably cook a lot outside on a grill as well. So that is our plan for that. Okay, so Greg, aka Harley D, wants to know where you buy most of your tools and construction supplies.
So we just mostly go to Home Depot and Lowe's and Ace and
Tractor Supply.
Tractor Supply. If you're going to get grade 8 bolts, Tractor Supply is definitely the place to buy those.
Or Bolt Depot online.
Bolt
If you
Depot.
have time and you don't have to get them that day,
Bolt
order your
Depot
hardware from
is awesome.
boltdepot.com. Way cheaper for
Yep.
good quality hardware.
Yep. So that's where we get most of our hardware. Our tools, I've had tools for a long time, and honestly, we usually get tools off of Craigslist. The only new tool I've bought is my drill when my dad's drill died. And I love that drill, but I should have bought it off Craigslist. So,
Yeah, like the drill press,
the
planer,
bandsaw.
the bandsaw, and then we borrowed tools like the table saw is his sister's, the compound miter saw is his friend's,
Yeah.
our sawhorses are his friends.
Yeah, a lot of our
I don't know,
tools
so
are borrowed.
Yeah, people are very kind and loan us their stuff. So, yep. Okay.
Oh, and the welder is Rich's.
Oh yeah, the welder is Rich's. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, he's
we
never
couldn't
even
do without
used
it. Okay. Freddie wants to know if we're going to have security or surveillance on the bus.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. There's going to be... The plan is to have cameras all around the bus for, when we're driving, I want to be able to have a display that shows pretty much the whole perimeter around the bus, and B is also for security. So both for when we're not there, and for recording what's going on, and just for, the peace of mind of being able to check in on stuff. And we have a very old cat. So we have a 21-year-old cat that's going to be hopefully traveling with us, and we'd like to keep an eye on her as well. So.
Sweet kitty. Okay. He also wants to know what are our plans or equipment we're going to use for keeping connected to the internet.
Right. So that's a big one. We belong to this group called the Mobile Internet Resource Center, which is run by Chris and Sherry.
Yeah,
And
they're bus people.
They also have a 4106,
Yep.
and they're a great resource for all that kind of stuff for traveling
Yeah, go
full
check
time
them
and
out for
having
sure.
connectivity. And so we are probably going to have two different plans, probably some type of Verizon plan and probably an AT&T plan. And we've already bought a few things based on stuff that we've read on their site and on their Facebook group. We've bought a WeBoost cell booster. But we mainly plan on doing cellular type stuff. We've heard that the internet, like Wi-Fi at RV parks, is not reliable at all, and so we plan to just kind of forego that for now. So anyway, that's our plan for internet stuff. But yes, my job depends on me having a reliable connection, and
for the
school
kids.
for the kids depends on a reliable, so we will need a reliable connection.
Okay, so Freddie asked, what about electrical standard or something like OpenHAP, Sonoff, MQTT, Tasmota, if you know what all that means?
Well, it's funny because that's what's coming up. So that's what I'm actually researching right now, and I've bought a few things, and I'm well into all those technologies right now. So that's probably going to take a whole video just to introduce the concept and how it affects our wiring and things like that. So just stay tuned because that one's coming up.
All right, Ben wants to know, will we end up telling what our build costs with a breakdown of the costs when it's done?
Yes.
Yeah, we will.
We're keeping track of everything on a Google spreadsheet. We were doing it much better. Now we're a little behind, but
We've probably lost a few receipts here and there, but we're doing our best.
We've got most of it, and we'll have a breakdown with all of our posts. We try to post what we paid for something and what it cost and how long it took us and all that. So we will definitely have some sort of tally at the end of what everything costs.
Okay. Mike wants to know what internet resources we use and if we are active on any forums.
Right. So we use a ton of different ones. A lot of them are on Facebook, and they're just groups of people doing similar things, especially with the battery stuff, with the RV electrical stuff. We also belong to several bus forums because when you own an old bus, there's not a lot of people that can work on them. So we do belong to several bus forums. One is Bus Conversions International. Another one is Grease Monkeys. We also belong to a few just RV lifestyle type pages and things like that. But yeah, we belong to quite a few internet. Recently, since I've been doing the electrical stuff, that it's mostly focused on electrics and electronics and things like that. But we do belong to quite a few full-time RV Facebook groups, and I think we're full-time family, full-time RV family members, and those types.
So do you want, there's a lot, just, we didn't write them all down. So maybe what we'll do is in our blog post, we will provide links and a list of a lot of those resources and forums and Facebook groups and stuff that we use for research and planning and things like that. So so you can just down below, we'll put a link to the blog post for this video, and if you hop on over there, you'll be able to find links and a list for all of those different resources. All right. So moving on to like, what are our plans for after the bus is done and our future? So here we go. We've got actually a lot of those exact questions. So Frank and Jim and Flying Euros are asking, what are our plans for when the bus is done? What are we going to use the bus for? Are we going to be traveling, or are we going to just go weekend camping? And we're going full time. So we, we're going full time. We're getting rid of the house, which we'll talk about in just a minute. We're going to travel and work and school on the road. Anything else about that?
No.
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. So, Jason on the blog, Greg, and William over on Facebook all asked, well, when is this happening? When are we going full time? When is our target date for hitting the road? And that is the $1 million question that we get asked. I mean, pretty much like daily, weekly by our friends, like our in-person friends at work and at the gym and at church, and our family. So when are you going to be done? When are you leaving? And we've just stopped even trying to answer that. We don't know. We don't know how long any of these projects take. You know, we think something's going to take 1 weekend to finish and ends up taking us 3 weekends to finish. And so we've just stopped answering, and we've said, we're going to leave when it's done. And that's our answer. So I wish I had a better date. I mean, as soon as possible. We would have left a year ago if we could. So that's it. As soon as we can. We're ready. Okay. So Bill asked, are we going to live in it full time? Which we answered, yes, we're going to live in it full time. But are we moving somewhere else? Or, and then he also asked, is the plan to travel just indefinitely? Do we have a stopping point? Bobby also asked how long we're going to be on the road.
Right. So the plan tentatively, we don't have a huge solid plan on this, but the plan tentatively is to go for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So a 2-year kind of journey across the U.S., making several loops, trying to hit a few of the spots. We've got a list of places that are sort of, you know, we definitely want to go see these places. Yeah. So, but a couple of years is what we're thinking.
Okay, so then John Matthews, hey John, he's another 4106 guy, wants to know if we're going to be keeping a home base. Freddie also asked if we are keeping a home base or if we're selling everything and leaving forever. Kevin wants to know where we want to end up. Well, this is absolutely our home base. All of our family is here, with, you know, the exception of a few family members that live in other places around the country, which we're excited to go and visit. But all the parents, grandparents, most of the aunts and uncles and cousins live here, like I said, except for a few that we're going to go visit. And so absolutely, Arizona is our home. It will always be our home. But we are selling our house, and we are selling 90% of our, well, probably like 99% of our stuff, or donating it or whatever, which we'll talk about in just a second. So absolutely, this is our home. We will, even if we're gone for a couple of years, it's not like we're not coming back to Arizona at all during that time. We will come home periodically to visit our family, and for special events and things like that. And when we're done traveling, we will come back here, and our thought is that we will come back and hopefully stay somewhat downsized, get another house, but hopefully a somewhat smaller house, because we do then intend on kind of part-time traveling. Even once we get a house again, maybe go out for a month or 2 months or 3 months at a time. We would love to do a lot of international traveling, obviously not with the bus, but we have family in Europe and we want to go visit them. We want to go to, you know, South America. We want to go to Australia. So we hopefully plan on staying downsized and doing more part-time, you know, few months, a month, or just, you know, and taking the bus out for a week or two at a time here and there, things like that, once we are done with this big journey. And then Randy wants to know if we have started downsizing yet. So I'll answer that, I guess. So when we first bought the bus, we actually did a major purge of our house. We had 2 garage sales, I mean carload upon carload of donations, and since that time we have just been very intentional about not bringing very many new things in unless it's a necessity. I mean, obviously kids need new shoes and okay, I mean, disqualifying tools, because we've brought in a lot of new tools and bus supplies, but general household things, we've just been very intentional about not bringing in new stuff as much as possible. And the family has been great about, like with birthdays and Christmas, about gifting the kids experiences or gift cards or things like that, rather than giving them a bunch of stuff that then we would just have to get rid of anyway. So we did a lot of downsizing then, and then have been intentional about not bringing in new things. And then now we are kind of back on the major purge again. We are donating lots of stuff, selling lots of things. And then really the only things that we are keeping is sentimental things that I'm keeping at my parents' house.
Just a few.
Yeah, I mean, a handful of things, like, you know, kids' baby things or some pictures and, you know, just a handful of things like that that we are holding on to. But honestly, we're not like attached to our stuff particularly. So we're pretty thankful, and our kids are really good about it too. So it's been pretty easy, and we don't have anything that valuable that we're like, oh, we need to keep a storage unit because that's so precious to us. We just don't have a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, so that is, we're in major downsizing mode again. Okay, so Randy wants to know if we're gonna have a towed.
Yes.
A vehicle.
So we did a lot of research on towed vehicles, and it was really important for us to have a vehicle that could be towed 4 down, so we don't have another trailer or another dolly. Initially, we had considered using our van. We have a Toyota Sienna van that we really like. It's a great vehicle. Unfortunately, it's not towable flat, and so we looked at a whole bunch of vehicles, Jeeps and all kinds of stuff, and most of those would not accommodate 6 people. So we finally ended up on a Dodge Durango. So it had to be the 8-cylinder with all-wheel drive so that it could go into neutral. And we did find one, and we have already bought it and are kind of getting used to it. And so that will be our tow vehicle. So what's left to do on that is to put all the tow stuff in the front and an auxiliary brake system and stuff like that. So, but yes, we will have a towed for sure.
Okay, so Randy wants to know if we have any goals in our travel, and Guy asked if we're still planning on heading east when we hit the road.
Right.
So heading east, that's just going to depend on when we actually leave, because we're going to follow good weather. So obviously we're probably not going to go to the East Coast, like the Northeast, in the winter. That wouldn't be very pleasant for us. We are desert rats, and while we want to get out of the heat, we do not want to be in the freezing cold. So
but goals for travel,
yeah.
we definitely we'd love to spend as much time as we can at national parks and at
historical sites and just out in nature.
And just a big goal of this also is, I mean, our oldest is 13, and it seems as we get older that time is just speeding up, and one of the goals is let's try to slow that down a little bit. Let's knock that down a couple notches, and I think we're hoping this will be an effective way to do that. We'll let you know if it is or isn't. But that's one of our goals, is to just be more intentional about spending time together while we still can. And when we sit and think about it, I mean, our oldest will be in college in 5 years, and 5 years just flies by. So that is definitely one of the goals, is just spend a ton of time together.
Yeah, we just want to have adventures. We want the kids to be outside more because, again, being in Phoenix, like half the year we can't be outside unless we're in our pool. And the kids go kind of stir crazy. And so we just want to be able to be outside more and see places that are green and not brown, right? I mean, just we want to see as much as we can. So I mean, educational goals, but just being out in nature and being together, and I guess that's it. Okay, so Freddie wants to know what our destinations will look like. Do we prefer warm or cooler weather, and will the bus be able to make it through a cold winter?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we don't plan to be like where it's a blizzard or anything. I think we'll be okay if it's
chilly.
Moderately chilly. I think we'll be okay. Yeah. So we would prefer to be in just moderate temperatures as much as we can. We don't get, we get like 2 weeks of spring and 2 weeks of fall in Phoenix where we live. And then we have like our winter, which is probably what most places would consider like a fall weather. And then we have just blazing hot, horrid heat for about 6 months a year. So we would like to just be places that are mild temperatures all the time. And favorite destinations, I mean, we talked about that a little bit, but we're also going to do things like go to Disney World and just do things that are just fun for the sake of being fun, that aren't necessarily educational or, you know, being out in nature. We'll just do plenty of fun things too. So all kinds of stuff. All right. Okay, so Jerry's This and That asked, are we worried about some of the things that our kids are going to miss out on by traveling, like sports? And Freddie asked if the kids are going to miss their friends and family, and will we? Yeah, I mean, absolutely we're going to miss our friends and family. We're pretty sure that our family will come and visit us, certain places where we are. Like I said, most of our family are good travelers, and so we think they'll find places where they can come and hang out with us. Skype and FaceTime are going to be good friends of ours, but we're so lucky. Our family and friends are super supportive, so we're going to miss them for sure. Like, we live 30 seconds from his sister and his mom. My sister used to live 5 houses down from us. My parents are 15 minutes away. Like, we're really close with our families, and we live really close to them, so for sure we're gonna miss them. But it's gonna be a great adventure that's worth it. As far as if they're gonna miss out on things here at home, I'm sure. I mean, in fact, they're already missing out on things because of just doing the bus conversion. They've had to give up some sports, but we have sort of, I guess, limited our family to just focus on one sport that they can all do, which is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which he does and all 4 of our kids do. And so that is something that we can take on the road with us. We can find gyms around the country that we can stop and train at, find open mats, and we actually have a mat that we're hoping we can take traveling with us, and then he can teach them on the road as well if we, have times where we can't get to a gym to train. So that they can continue doing. 3 of our 4 kids play piano, so we're planning on bringing a piano with us, not a full-size piano, but like an electronic full 88-key piano with us, so that they can keep playing. But yeah, I mean, they're gonna miss certain things, but they're also gonna be gaining so many things that they can't just by staying at home. So it's a give and take, and for us, this is worth it for right now. And the kids don't feel like they're gonna be missing out. They totally get, and they're super excited about the things that they're going to get to do. So they're all totally on board. All right. Flying Euros and Bobby and Freddie ask if we're going to keep making videos once we're on the road.
Yes, we are going to keep making videos. We kind of, when we first started this, we were sort of treating the build as a, just kind of like training wheels, just to get used to the camera and taking video and pictures and things like that, and sort of telling the story of building our bus. So we're getting a little better at it, slowly but surely, and we've learned a lot of the video editing software and how to do pictures and how lighting affects things, and so we're learning still, and hopefully we're getting a little bit better, and we're both getting more comfortable sort of speaking to the camera. It does still feel weird. I don't know if it ever feels totally normal, but we're fairly introverted people, so this is it's a little bit out of our comfort zone to do this stuff, and so like I said, we're kind of treating the whole build as sort of like a pre-game to what we'll be doing when we finally hit the road.
Right. So I mean, like we said in our video last week, our goal with starting this channel was to keep our family and friends informed of what we were doing and share with them, and also to preserve these memories for our kids. And so that's still going to be a goal when we're traveling. We want to share that with our family and friends. We want to keep these memories for our kids, and so absolutely we're going to be doing that. But it's going to be a different kind of video. We don't really know exactly what that is going to look like. Talking to a camera in our garage and in our driveway is going to be very different than being out in public places and trying to record ourselves while we're out in public. I think that's going to be weird. I don't know. I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out. And just what our video style is going to be, I mean, we just don't know yet. So give us some grace as we get to that part and try and figure that out, because we have no idea. But we absolutely will, in addition to just filming our adventures, we will also keep up on like the technical side of the bus, like how is our battery holding up, how is our solar working, what about our air conditioner or water heater or whatever. We will keep filming those kinds of updates, or if things break, how do we fix them, stuff like that. So so we will keep filming, and just hopefully you guys can enjoy the ride with us. All right, and the last question, thank you Greg, said, what kind of adult beverages should we bring when we meet up?
So we look forward to meeting quite a few of you.
Yeah.
We've made pretty good friends with quite a few of you on here, and a lot of you are on forums and Facebook groups and things like that we're a part of. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward to meeting up with as many of you guys as we can. Definitely, I mean, we're pretty chill people, so pretty low-key kind of people, so we're not the partying kinds.
Bring us hot chocolate. Yeah, well, thank you guys again so much for your sweet messages and for all of your questions. And I know there was a lot of questions, and we like to tell stories in our answers, so this is probably a little bit of a longer video than we're used to, but we super appreciate you guys following along with us, and just stay tuned. We're still waiting to get the bus back from the painter. We're pretty sure it's almost done, so hopefully that'll be really soon, and then we'll have some more projects to share, and then hopefully, like he said, hopefully we'll see you guys on the road.